Hello everybody, today we're going to be talking about my favorite books from 2022. So hi, my name is Delia. I love books, I love bandanas. I'm so glad you're at my channel today. I had big plans for this video. It was going to be like a bandana award competition with like different categories, and it was going to be fantastic. And you know, the year's just kind of started off a little bit crazy, so I have kind of thrown out all the big plans and just made a list of my favorite books from 2022, and we're just gonna chat low-key about them today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and we'll just jump right into it. Okay, these are in no particular order. They're just kind of books that stood out to me as I was thinking about my reading journey over the past year. And the past year was full of some amazing reads. So let's just get into it. Okay, Into the Wild by Krakauer. I loved that book so much. I feel like this was kind of the book that really got me jump-started into nonfiction for the year, because it really read as a fiction story. Like, it just flowed so smoothly, and just, you know, told the story of Chris McCandless and his life and how he eventually ended up dying in Alaska in this bus. And it was so interesting because, like, you knew how it was gonna end. So going into it, I was like, well, how much can there really be said about this? Like, we know he goes into Alaska ill-prepared and ends up dead. You know, how can this be a good story? And Krakauer truly delivers. Like, it's so well written. He researched so many just of the people that Chris met on his journey and like the paths he took, and like he really makes you feel like you know Chris, and as he's like going on his journey into Alaska, you're like, no, stop, don't do it. I really liked it a lot. I feel like it was amazingly done. So definitely one of the top books of the year for me. So Spinning Silver was also a top book of the year. This book is based on the fairy tale Rumpelstiltskin, told from a few different characters' perspectives, all young women, and I really loved each of their points of view. Fell in love with all the characters, loved how they kind of came together at the end. And I just thought this story was beautiful from beginning to end. Loved it. I read another Naomi Novik book after this, and that I kind of hated. I read, what was it called? What was it called? I can't remember. I hated it so much that I blocked it out. So I was super disappointed because literally I loved this book. This is the favorite of the year for sure. So I think it might be a one-hit wonder for me, though. I don't even know how many we are talking about today. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, but 1 is 2. So technically 12 books, okay? There's going to be 12 books today. This video is a hot mess. That's okay. I think you guys have all figured out by now that I'm kind of a hot mess. So continuing on, another nonfiction that I loved, Between Two Kingdoms by Suleika Jaouad. This was such a good one. So Suleika was diagnosed with this rare, super severe form of leukemia in her, I think it was just early 20s. She was like in college when she started having these symptoms, and it went undiagnosed for a while, and by the time it was diagnosed, she was very sick. So it just kind of tells her story of like going through this severe cancer, chemo, bone marrow transplants, finally going into remission, and then taking this trip around the country to visit people who like helped her, inspired her, wrote letters to her during her journey, because she starts journaling and writing newspaper articles for her cancer journey partway through. So just really well done. I really feel like she did such a good job portraying like what she went through in this experience, and yeah, really recommend that as well. Okay, Project Hail Mary by Weir. This was so good. Like, this book was probably the first one, like when I think about last year, I'm like, oh yes, that was a great time reading that. So Project Hail Mary is a sci-fi. Main character wakes up on this spaceship shooting through space, and he has no idea why he's there. He has like no memory of this situation, and he has 2 other crew members that are dead. and his memory like eventually starts coming back, and he realizes that he is supposed to save the world because the sun is getting its energy sucked out of it. So this sounds totally crazy, and I wouldn't consider myself to be like a super sci-fi fan, but this was so well done. Like, it was a great story. Beginning was great, middle was great, end was great. Loved the main characters. I just thought it was a beautiful story. I recommend it to anyone, sci-fi fan, not a sci-fi fan. Like, you will love Project Hail Mary. It was fantastic. Okay, right around the same time I read Project Hail Mary, I read that Invincible? I think it's Invisible, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And that was fantastic as well. So we have this girl, and she is being forced to get married. I think the big first timeline is like 1700s. It moves through a span of like 300 years of her life. So we're gonna say 1700s. She's being forced to get married. She doesn't want to get married. She wants a different life for herself than that. So she makes like this deal with the devil by the river that she basically won't have to get married, that he'll like get her out of this situation. And she doesn't really know what she's promising. She doesn't really know like what she's getting into. And so basically he makes it so she cannot be remembered. So anytime she goes back to her house right then where she's supposed to be getting married, and they're like, who the heck are you? We've never seen you in our lives. So she can interact with people. Like, if she goes into a bar and meets someone, she can interact and have a full conversation. But if she if they get up to go to the bathroom and come back, they have no recollection of her. So it's crazy because it's impossible for her to get a job because she can get one, but then if she shows up, they don't know who she is. It's impossible for her to rent an apartment because they have no like memory of like renting to her. So she basically just has to live homeless, like, and like wander around. Can't really form like any relationships. So it is so crazy, but I found myself just fully engaged. It was a longer book and I flew through it pretty quickly. It was just a book that made me think over and over, like, what would I do in this situation? Like, how would you survive like this? Like, how, like, I just really felt a lot of empathy for the character. And there was some twists and turns at the end of the story that I really loved. And again, I recommend that book to anyone. It was 5 stars, amazing. Also, I loved And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This was one of my, this was my first Agatha Christie book, and I really, really enjoyed it. So you have 10 strangers on an island. They start dying one by one, and the whole time you're trying to figure out, like, how are they dying? Why are they dying? Who's the murderer? Like, what's going on? And I just feel like it was so, like, such a quick read, and Agatha Christie doesn't, like, give a lot of fluff. It's kind of like, these are the characters, now they're gonna die, here we go. So I really liked that because you didn't spend a lot of time like with a lot of like character history and trying to figure out like, is this meaningful or is it not? It was just kind of straight into the point, and I really liked it. I've read one other Agatha Christie book since then that I liked as well, and I will definitely be continuing with her. But if you have not read any Agatha Christie, this is a great place to begin because this book is a 5-star all the way. Okay, this was a surprise for me. Cinder by Marissa Meyer. I loved this book so much, and this is YA, which I don't tend to really love a lot, and it's a Cinderella story, but Cinderella is a cyborg, and it takes place like years in the future, like I think after like World War IV or something takes place. So you don't really know, like when you're going into this, I was just kind of like, what, Cinderella's a cyborg? Like, I don't know, but it sounded interesting, and I ended up loving it so much. Like, I fell in love with the character immediately. I loved just how fast-paced it was, and like a little bit of humor, and like it's like sci-fi but not like super like confusing. I don't know. I don't have a great explanation for why I love this book, but I loved it. Like, the way it made me feel was like excited and energetic, and I was like, I want more of this. So I'm actually currently reading the second book in the series now. So yeah, I'm super curious about the rest of the series and about Marissa Meyer in general, because this was definitely a top book of the year for me. Okay, we could not talk about 2022 if we did not talk about Amari and the Night Brothers. I know I have talked about these a lot on my channel, both books. I loved these so much. I read library copies originally, as I did with most of my books for the year. Actually, I don't have copies of quite a few of them, but I had to pick up copies of these, which I did recently. So Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. It was so fun to discover this series. So Amari is this young girl. Her brother has disappeared. The cops have said like there's no hope for him returning. She has never really believed that. And then one day she finds this mysterious suitcase that invites her to join the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. And she goes, and it's kind of like this school, and she starts learning about powers that she never knew she had. It's kind of like Harry Potter-ish meets Men in Black. Like there's like secret agents that are going out and trying to solve crimes and deal with the supernatural things that happen in the world that Amari didn't have any idea about until then. So it's super well written. B.B. Austin tackles like a bunch of different topics in like an easy to understand middle grade way, such as racism and you know, problems with hierarchy in our society and immigration. And I just feel like it's all handled so well, and it's done in a way that like isn't in your face, but it makes you think about these issues in a way that like a middle schooler and adult that likes to read middle school books can read and understand. And also it's just a great story. Like I love the friendships Amari makes. I love the adventures she has. There's like some twists that I did not see coming for sure. I love Amari and the Night Brothers and Amari and the Great Game. The third book is coming out this year, so I'm really hoping to get my hands on an advanced copy of that one. I was able to with Amari and the Great Game, so we'll see how that goes this year. But yeah, I could not recommend that series. If you like middle grade at all, or even are thinking about trying a middle grade series, like recommend that for people of all ages for sure. I also read Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, and I loved that as well. That book had probably the best like atmosphere descriptions that I read all year. Like it takes place in this swamp, and the main character grows up kind of alone there after being abandoned by her family, and it just does such a great job describing like where she lives and how she survives in this swamp, and great imagery of like the birds that she sees and how she collects all these feathers, and just like you can just feel yourself immersed in her world. So there's a couple different timelines. One is her growing up, and another is this murder that takes place like several years in the future, like I don't know, maybe 20 years after she's a little girl. And the whole time it's kind of like insinuating that maybe she committed this murder, and there ends up being like a trial saying that she did, but you don't know if she did or if it's just the town wanting to say she did because she's like a weirdo who lived in the swamp her whole life by herself. So you're going back and forth the whole time trying to figure out like, did she do this? Did she not? Did she do this? Did she not? And I just feel like it was so well done. Definitely a topic of the year for me. Like flew through it. I could not put that one down. So definitely recommend that one as well. Another nonfiction I read was Funny Farm, My Life with 600 Rescue Animals by Laurie Zaleski. I read that pretty recently actually, and it is one that will stick with me for a while. It's a story of Laurie growing up with her mom and brother and sister. They have to flee like a super violent household, and their father like won't even let them go after they like flee. He like does all this terrible stuff to them, trying to make their lives miserable. Like he's just a creature. But it tells the story of like her mom kind of standing up and overcoming, and she ends up like collecting all these rescue animals. Like there's like first a couple dogs, and then there's a cat, and there'll be like a random horse that needs to be taken care of, and they have like all these animals living in like their tiny house and tiny yard. And it's just like the story of how Laurie grew up in this environment and how it all got started, and then it breaks up with different like just funny animal stories along the way. And Laurie right now as an adult now has like a full nonprofit. She has 600 rescue animals that she takes care of, and like this is what she's doing for her life. And man, it's just an amazing story, and so many funny animal stories. Like I literally was laughing out loud. I probably laughed more in this book than I have all year in reading. It was pretty darn funny. So as far as nonfiction goes, if you're looking for a light nonfiction read, definitely recommend. And I'm following Laurie on social media now and it's so fun to see like what she's doing now after writing this book and being like, oh my gosh, that's an animal I heard about in the book, and just like pulling it all together has been really fun. So definitely recommend that one as well. So lastly, I want to talk about Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. I really love this story, and it's funny because looking back on it, I can't put my finger exactly on what I loved about it. I just thought it was such a sweet, cozy read. You have like a little bit of magic, you have topics of like friendship and like pursuing what you believe in, and I just really liked it. There was some great like food description moments, which I liked. I just feel like this book made me feel so good when I was reading it that I had to include it in this list, and Sarah Addison Allen is definitely an author that I'm going to continue reading because I really liked this one. Okay, so that's all I have to talk about today. I hope you are doing well wherever you are. I hope you take some time today to read a good book or two. And if you are having a bad hair day, just wear a bandana. Bye.